Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. Welcome to the Payroll Overview webinar for Church Windows. Just a few things before we get started on our topic. Again, we're going to work together. I'm going to be here to Scott talking for about the next 20 minutes or so, maybe less depending on the topic. If you have questions for me, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar. I'll certainly, your questions pane there. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those and answer those, but I may not be able to get to them until the very end of the presentation. Thank you very much for attending. You may always, of course, exit the webinar whenever you've seen what you came to see by simply clicking the File menu on your webinar control panel and choosing the Exit Leave Webinar option. Again, folks, please keep your questions about the payroll module if you have them. Again, I'm not equipped to talk about those other ones today, either in my data or perhaps in my thinking. So again, we just ask that you keep them on task here, on topic. There's no document today. There's nothing from the workbooks, which kind of brings us to the most important point about the webinar event is that this is, as described, an overview. This is a bells and whistles webinar event. We're not really going into any detail in payroll whatsoever in terms of the setup or really much use of it. It's basically just showing a lot of functionality that the payroll module offers without really going into any detail. I strongly encourage folks, if you are looking for something with more detail, to go to churchwindows.com. Go to our support center here under the supporting menu, and then right down here at the bottom right, let me get my highlighter, steer some focus. Down here under our categories here on the right hand side, we've got the option called Payroll right here, where you can filter the all of the documents on the support center to reveal all of the documents and movies and videos that we have on the payroll module, and there certainly are a number of them. So if you're looking for something with a little more meat or detail on it, I strongly encourage you to look at those. Again, no detail today really. It's just going to be showing lots of folks things that you can do in payroll without going into any detail. Okay? All right. So Church Windows Payroll, I like to always mention is, of course, it's a separate icon from the regular stained glass window icon for Church Windows. So as we clearly see here in the upper left-hand corner of our desktop, we've got our stained glass window icon. And then right below that, we've got our little payroll icon. Payroll is a separate program from Church Windows, but it does link and talk to the accounting module or the accounting database, which does reside in the main Church Windows program. But a lot of folks are surprised by that. They open Church Windows and they don't see the payroll link in there. And so it's important to be aware that payroll is a completely separate program from Church Windows and technically can stand alone on its own. We do have a certain percentage of our churches and users that just own payroll. They don't own any other portion of the software, membership or donations or accounting or what have you. And that's how it's always been. And so that's important. First important technical detail is it's not part of the regular suite of Church Windows. It's a standalone program all on its own. As our developers are probably beginning the rewrite process for our payroll module over to the SQL database, I think the anticipation is we're still expecting it to be a completely separate and standalone program. Okay? It'll still talk to the versions of Church Windows or the rest of the Church Windows software for accounting, but in terms of that, I still think the intention is going to be that it's still supposed to be a separate program. At least that's what I'm suspecting at this point. The payroll is it's a payroll program. It allows you to pay your employees and or contractors if you wish. However, an important distinction we have to make sure that you're aware of about in contractors is you can pay and produce 1099s for your contractors from payroll, but you can also do that from the accounting module as well. So you don't need to own Church Windows Payroll in order to record contractor pay and issue them 1099s, provided it's miscellaneous income that is all you need on the 1099 miscellaneous income. Okay. So another really important thing is that a lot of folks are unaware of. Oh, well, don't I need Church Windows Payroll in order to pay my contractors and produce 1099s? No, you just need accounting for that. You only need Church Windows Payroll to pay the employees of the church, okay, to record them. With that being said, I think probably, and this is again a very commonly overlooked or an unknown fact about Church Windows Payroll, of course, is that it not only is suitable for paying your lay staff, non-clergy, but it also is designed most specifically with ministers and clergy in mind. Okay? This is, again, really important because, ministers fall into a very unique portion of the nation's tax code, and so they have very specific payroll needs, and Church Windows Payroll supports that. Okay? And I'm going to show you some of those features here momentarily. First and foremost, if we go into, what I like to tell folks is if you're maybe just here attending because you're setting up payroll for the very first time perhaps, or you're just new to it, I like showing folks that if we go to the help files and we go into contents and it opens up the Church Windows help file, let's click off that to get rid of that. Right here under our file maintenance, easy steps to begin using payroll, literally these 9 steps with the various links that are included in it literally will get payroll from installation all the way up to up and running and calculating folks and calculating payroll and printing checks. So literally, if you open the payroll help file and look at these 9 options, this will get payroll up and running for you and working, okay, with links to each one of those important sections, okay? So again, very comprehensive help files on that. And when we go into data setup here and we say notice here we've got 2 options, one called employee file and one called independent contractor file. I work with a lot of churches who pay strictly employees in payroll and contractors all through accounting. I work with other churches where they pay both of them in payroll exclusively. Okay? It's your choice. If we go to our employee file, we clearly see our first employee in the list, Larry. He's our senior pastor. We notice right here to the upper left, well, before I do that, to add an employee, we would simply click Add in the upper right here, and it opens up the Add Employee window where it allows me to enter their name, address, city, state, phone numbers, zip code, social security number, filing status, etc. Okay? And then I would simply click OK through that, at which point then the name appears on the left, and all of these tabs are available at the bottom right to then complete for the employee. Okay, so to go back to Larry, our senior pastor, he is right here marked as a minister. Everybody can see that, hopefully, my arrow and my circle that I drew around that right here. Okay, by marking that minister box, we are simply telling the system that this person is a minister or clergy person, and they are not subject to standard Social Security, Medicare, and FICA withholding amounts. The church is then, there's nothing that's the church is then obligated or the system will withhold or match for that Social Security and Medicare either. Okay? So that's, again, a very important thing about Church Windows Payroll that separates it from other payroll systems is that minister box. Okay? Over on the right-hand side, of course, we do have our standard pay types, hourly, salaried, and then if a person is no longer with the church, they can be terminated. Also our pay periods of weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, semi-monthly, and or miscellaneous pay schedule. And then below that is where we would enter their pay hours and rates, whether they're hourly or salaried. Okay? Another thing about Church Windows Payroll that makes it such a powerful and useful program is, of course, when we're dealing with things like deductions and specifically allowances. So if we go to our allowances tab down here at the very bottom, we do see Larry, who our senior pastor, does have a couple of allowances set up, housing and an automobile reimbursement allowance. So in essence, what this means is there's no longer a need to write 2 separate checks to the pastor, one for their regular base pay and one for their, say, housing allowance. The housing allowances in Church Windows can be set up to report absolutely correctly while still being included with checks with regular gross pay, base pay. Okay? So again, really, really useful. Can certainly save on printing checks and time as well by being able to record all of those allowances and pay them all to the pastor on one single check. Certainly makes reporting a lot easier and simpler too. Okay? Yes, we do have, other important information here. In addition to that, there's other General 2 information, Federal tab, which tells us, the system whether the person is single or married based on their W-4, completed W-4 that the church should have, any, state taxes if applicable, local even, Church Windows Payroll has what's called a local tax wizard where it allows you to set up a local tax. And then, of course, deductions for generally voluntary deductions for things like health insurance or pension contributions, etc. Well, and in some cases not so voluntary, child support or wage garnishment or something like that, lien of some kind. And then, of course, our allowances. And then, of course, it does have a totals tab that shows what each employee has year to date for their 941 totals and W-2 totals, as well as a breakdown by quarter. Okay. Before we leave the employee file, we also do like to point out that Church Windows Payroll does support direct deposit. Now, nothing ever gets transferred from Church Windows Payroll directly to the bank, but our payroll system does produce what's called an NACHA or NACHA compliant file that can then be transferred to the bank and to have your folks paid electronically. Okay. This, when we go to the General 2 tab and we scroll down to the bottom, we notice we have the Use Direct Deposit checkbox, which in this case is checked for the Larry, and then the other information as, the routing number and account number for the employee's account number that they're having their monies deposited to. At this time, pay can only be direct deposited for a single employee to one account. It cannot be split between two different accounts. Okay. In addition to the employees portion, of course, we would go to System Administration, System Profile, and right here, notice at the very top, we've got our tab called EFTACH Info. This is where we would enter the church's direct deposit or banking information for that direct deposit file. Got to have both, of course. And then here in just a couple minutes, when we're going to go through the a quick payroll calculation process, we'll see how that those EFT files are created, stubs are printed, and then subsequently checks are printed for the remainder of our employees who aren't opting for direct deposit. Okay. So yeah, of course, we have to be able to enter both employees and the employer's bank information in there. I do like to point out a couple of things about payroll here, of course, is we do have under our payroll menu what's called the EFT authorization form. This is basically a form that we put into this, add into the system that we strongly encourage the church obtain a copy from each employee who is opting for direct deposit. It basically confirms, that they have agreed to have their payroll deposited via electronic transfer or direct deposit, as well as including the employee's routing and account number information. Just something you can keep on file, just to verify that they did elect to have that, they're paid that way, and just to keep a record of it. Okay. In addition to the things we've discussed already about payroll, again, another really helpful and useful feature about it is when we go to our reports menu, and there are lots of reports in payroll we can run. Some are more helpful and useful than others, of course. That's true about virtually any report. But I like to show the tax reports. So if we go to our tax reports and hover over that, you've got our federal, state, and local tax tables. But notice here we've got our quarterly 941 form, the annual 944. We've got W-2, W-3, W-4. Can print 1099s here, as well as the amended forms, 941X and W-2 and W-3C forms. Okay. So these forms can be printed directly from Church Windows Payroll. So if we say go to quarterly 941 form, we are getting ready to release a payroll update here in the next week or 10 days or so, folks, that's going to update the 941 form to the New Year's form. When we look at it now, it's still going to show the 2016 form. It's not due yet for first quarter of 17. But if we go to, first quarter, our deposit schedule, in this case, many churches are monthly, but it can choose semi-weekly or quarterly. If, you have to find that out from the IRS, and your deposit state. We go to next. No third-party designee information, no paid preparer info. And then it pops up and says our total deposits for the period is this amount correct? Unless we know different, we're going to say yes. And then it automatically pops up and opens up our pre-populated 941 form to file. Again, the update, the patch that we're getting ready to release here in the next 10 days or so is going to update the year here to 2017. So that's why the form still says 16, is that it's not due yet for 17. And we're getting ready to get that patch out to folks. Again, another great advantage of having payroll is that this is a completely fileable document for the IRS and for the government. Okay? Same is true for any of those other tax documents like your W-2s, W-3s. Those can all be printed directly from payroll and filed. Of course, you still need the 1099s and the 1096, the forms. The government still requires those forms, but they certainly can be printed from the software. You just need the forms to print them to. And I finally said, payroll does link over to accounting too. So if we go to system administration, we do have, that help file that I was pointing you to talks about linking payroll to accounting. There's a process to do that. It's very quick and simple, but once it is, you go to account number setup, and here again are all of our employees listed at the top with their link to their respective accounts in the chart of accounts in accounting. Okay? And so whenever a new employee is added to the database, you would need to come in here as the final step and link this. It's not going to allow us to transfer any of the pay over to accounting for any employee until till the system sees all of the accounts, the necessary accounts to transfer to debit and credit in accounting, including our local tax tabs, deductions, and allowances tabs as well. Okay? So with a couple more minutes left here, I did say I wanted to go through a quick payroll calculation real fast. So if we go to payroll and calculate payroll, it asks us to enter our pay period and settlement date. They can be the same or different. We go to next. And then it asks us who are we paying, calculate payroll to. It's going to default to all employees, contractors, but you can choose it based on a department, pay type, or pay frequency. In this case, we're going to pay everybody. Go to next. All of our employees are listed here. If I've got an hourly employee like Jimmy, I can come down here and go, okay, well, Jimmy didn't work 45 hours this past week without changing his employee file, and I can say, okay, he only worked 38. I can edit that on the fly. And it'll revert back to his default employee file setup next week. Then I go to next. I can click Browse Payments down here to examine the net pay amount for everybody. So right here, I'm talking about the net pay here in the upper right column, right here. That's the net check amount that's going to populate or show on each check for every employee. If it looks good, I would cancel. Here I can choose to print some pre-posting reports if I wish. I prefer to print them afterwards, so I'm not going to check those, but I'll go ahead and check them for our purposes of our webinar. Go to Next. It opens up those reports. I can send them to my printer if I wish. Then go to Next. So here notice it's asking us yes to post to payroll. It isn't going to post for them if I don't. I'm going to create the EFT file to send to the bank. I'm going to print checks for the rest of the employees, and I am going to transfer to accounting. Simply click Finish. It tells me the payroll was posted to employee file successfully. It now opens up and allows me to create the EFT transaction file for my employees. That's great. I go to Next. Here are the stubs that I would simply print for them. I would send those to plain paper. Then I would go to Next, and I would say, yes, the stub's printed. Then Finish, and then the EFT file has been created for me to then transfer to the bank. And now I can open up and enter my starting check number for my regular employees. Go to next. Pop those checks into the printer and print those. Print it to check stock. Make sure they print it out okay. Check yes, they printed correctly, which is systematic in most cases. Finish. And then it opens up my transfer to accounting window, allowing me to transfer these over with literally one mouse click over to the accounting module. All right, folks, I've gone about 30 seconds longer than I really wanted or intended to. If you've seen what you came to see, thank you so much for attending. It's now asking me to print my report. If of that transfer of the payroll over to accounting, I'm going to say no to that. And let's see what questions we've got here. How would we know if there is a local tax we would need to include in the payroll? Whoa, boy, Beverly, that's a great question. Probably contact somebody at your local tax, see if you've got somebody local at the state level. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to answer that. Normally it would be known if there's a local, either a flat rate tax or a school district tax. Those are generally what those two are going to be. But you might need to contact somebody at your local government office to find out about that. Why doesn't the net pay show the total without dropping the last digit? I'm not sure where you were seeing that, Diane. If it's occurring on your checks, it certainly doesn't occur on ours. Probably the font may have been changed for your stubs maybe on there. That would be something to look at. That's a support call. Please call us. We're happy to look at that with you. How do you get the FT file to the bank? Oh, that's a good question, Jane. Well, that's really a question for your bank. I mean, they're generally one of three ways that those files are transferred. You either upload it through a secure link at the bank's website, most common these days. You could put it onto a flash drive or a thumb drive and physically take it over to the bank and physically they'll take it to put it in their system. The other one, which is less common because it's not very secure, is you attach the file as an email attachment to an email and send it to them. But that would be a question for your bank. Contact them and say, hey, if we do offer direct deposit, or you do, how would we transfer the file to the bank there? And they'll let you know how that works. Do you do this every week or just once? Oh no, you would do it. You would every time the employees were paid, you would be transferring a file to the bank to upload for that particular and specific pay date. Yeah, it would happen regularly, based on your pay schedule. You're welcome, of course. All right, I'm just waiting around to see if anybody else is typing any more questions in here. Again, a recording of this webinar event will be available on our website, we hope by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. And folks, if you have any questions about it whatsoever, of course, please don't hesitate to contact our support staff. We're here till 5 p.m. Eastern Time today. And we'll certainly look forward to hearing from you if you do have any questions. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. We hope it's been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you at another Church Windows webinar event. Thank you all so much. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.